Thank you, friends, for coming again to another Kumi session. I know last week we had a bit of a group session, so you won't be pressured this week to speak again, since we now have Nora to present to us today on our topic, which is Indigenous rights. As usual, all of you know the format of Kumi now already, but the first part of our meeting, 30 to 40 minutes, will be dedicated to our guest. And then please stay around, as we'll also have the rest of the hour to dedicate to action. So as I said, we're recording the meeting, so just make sure to mute your mics, and then we'll also have a Q&A session for Nora. So if you have any questions for her while she speaks, please put that in the chat, and then we'll have that. But I want to introduce Nora a bit. She can also introduce herself, but she's a very accomplished activist and leader within Palestinian society. She has founded several projects and organizations around Palestine, which includes Museum and Cultural Center, as well as women projects in the Old City of Jerusalem, Maliyah Art Center, and Bit al-Balad, and other projects throughout the West Bank in Gaza. And she's currently a community development specialist and president of Alta Services, and center providing services, I believe, to the elderly, which I also believe is based in Jerusalem. So today she'll speak on Indigenous rights. She'll introduce herself a little bit more and her current work as well. So Nora, we have all the time to speak, and then we'll put questions in the chat, and I'll ask you those questions, so you don't have to pay attention to the chat.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be talking. Maybe I have some friends in the background. The Indigenous rights, it really raises lots of questions to the mind of the Palestinians. But allow me first to define what indigenous means. The dictionary definition of indigenous is people existing or inhabiting a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists. That is, belonging to a particular place rather than coming to it from somewhere else. The root word of indigenous is derived from Latin, indigenous, and indigma, which means native, and from the archaic endo, a cognate of the Greek endo, meaning from within. The root to produce, give birth, beget. Just opposite indigenous is foreign. For example, indigenous over aboriginal, as it is, for example, indigenous means reinforcing land claims and encouraging territory acknowledgement. Again, the indigenous refers to these people with pre-existing sovereignty living together as a community prior to contact with settler population. As to the word Palestine or Palestine, it is derived from ancient Greek Philistia, but ancient Egyptians, Assyrians, and Hebrew languages also included a similar sounding words to describe the people. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are all strongly tied to the region and trace their origins to the land over the past few thousand years, not 10 years or 20 years or 30 thousands of years. I really thought, in order to talk about the indigenous people here, is to talk about the origin of the Palestinians. In early times, Palestine was inhabited by Semitic peoples, the earliest being the Canaanites. According to tradition, Arabian, the common Abraham, the common ancestor of the Jews and the Arabs, came from Ur to Canaan. The Palestinian people are an ethno-national group with family origins. Ethno-nationalism or ethnic nationalism is defined by the shared belief in the relationship between nation and state. You belong to the nation if you share an ethnic identity with the nation, not just because you share a political heritage or citizenship status. Ethno-nationalism is patriotism, sometimes to an excessive degree. As I said before, the Palestinian people are an ethno-national with family origins in Palestine. Since 1964, the people have been referred to as Palestinians, but before they were referred to as Palestinian Arabs, so they were more or less Arabs. During the British Mandate from 1920 to 1947, the term Palestinian was also used to describe the Jewish community living in Palestine, who were very little, actually between 15 to 20% maximum. The indigenous people of Palestine are mainly, as is known historically, the Bedouins of Jahalin, Kaabni, Azazmi, Ramadin, and Rashaida. This is according to the International Work Group for Indigenous Affairs. Israel refrained from voting for the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of the Indigenous Peoples, and the indigenous peoples in Palestine live in constant fear caused by the demolition and confiscation of their property, as well as the right of movement, circulation, and herd grazing areas. Following Israel's declaration of independence in 1948, the Jahalin Bedouin, together with 4 tribes from the Negev Desert, whom I mentioned earlier, Ramadin, Rashaida, etc., took shelter in the West Bank under the Jordanian rule, which began in 1949 and ended in 1967. Those tribes are traditionally semi-nomadic, agro-pastoralists, living in rural areas around Hebron, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Jericho, and the Jordan Valley. Today, these areas are part of the so-called Area C of the occupied Palestinian territories, according to the Oslo Accord of 1995, and they represent 60% of the West Bank. Israel was granted temporary administrative and security control of the Area C, which has all these Bedouins. And it was supposed to be gradually returned to the PA, to the Palestinian Authority, by 1999. This never happened. And today, after 57 years of the Oslo Accords, Israel retains almost exclusively total control of Area C, including law enforcement, planning, and construction. And the people suffer a lot with all those restrictions. It is now the home of the West Bank, all West Bank, Israeli settlements, industrial estates, military bases, firing ranges, national reserves, and settler only for road passes, all are under the Israeli military. This is what the natives of the land suffered from. Now, the main dispute between the Palestinian indigenous people and Israel is the land on which Mr. Arthur Balfour, British Prime Minister in 1917, promised to establish a homeland for people with no land to land with no people, and that was wrong. This caused the expulsion and dispersion of 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, loss of land, and the beginning of the non-ending wars and intifadas, which last until the present day. Indigenous rights. Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Human rights include the right to life, to liberty, freedom, and freedom of opinion and expression, the right of movement, work, education, self-rule, and many more. The indigenous people are deprived of the majority of these human rights. The Universal Declaration of the Rights, UDHR, acts like a global roadmap for freedom and equality, protecting the rights of every individual everywhere on earth, be him indigenous or aboriginous. It was the first time countries agreed on the freedoms and rights that deserve universal protection in order for every individual to live their lives freely, equally, and with dignity. The declaration was adopted by the newly established United Nations on 10 December 1948 in response to the barbarous acts which outraged the conscience of mankind during the Second World War, and that was the Holocaust. Its adoption recognized human rights to be the foundation for freedom, justice, and peace, which unfortunately do not hold today.
Yeah.
Israeli Declaration of Independence included lots of things that are worthwhile just reviewing. In its Declaration of Independence, Israel has been declared as a Jewish state for all Jews of the world. Its legal definition, legal and democratic, was adopted only in 1985. In addition to its Jewish majority in the area, excluding the Palestinian areas, Israel is the home of religions and religious minority groups that report discrimination, the Ashkenazis vis-a-vis the Haredim. In the Palestinian areas, successive Israeli governments have been subject to international criticism from countries all over the world, as well as international and human rights groups. One of the basic laws of Israel, intended to form the basis of a future constitution under basic law, human dignity and liberty, is a major tool for safeguarding human rights and civil liberation in Israel. However, it was criticized by the Human Rights Council and Israeli Human Rights Organization as the law does not provide a general provision for equality and non-discrimination against the natives, the original natives of the country. Israel and its violation of human rights, including the indigenous population. The US State Department, in its 2015 country report, criticized Israel's human rights practiced significant human rights problems regarding institutional discrimination against Arab citizens of Israel, whom are identified until the present day as Palestinians. There are also other minority groups such as Ethiopians, women, and other Israelis that are mistreated as well. And irregular immigrants also face the same fate. Institutions of discrimination against non-Orthodox Jews is also in great practice. Now, the violation of human rights are violations to whether to indigenous people or to the non-indigenous people, but basically to the indigenous people here, in our case, Palestinians in the Palestinian areas. Arbitrary detention, lack of freedom of movement, killing, discrimination in all its various means, and the crimes against humanity under the international humanitarian law are multi: abductions, arbitrary arrests, intentional and detentions without trial, political executions, assassinations, and torture, where peace building and reconciliation become impossible. The examples of human dignity violations are multifold: torture, rape, social.
Did you cut out, Nora? I think you're.
No, I am on now, but it was cut out a little.
Okay, no worries. I think you can continue. We were hearing you up to a little bit, like 1 second ago.
Okay.
If anyone has questions also for Nora, in the chat, it would be great. You can put it in the chat and I can read it to her as well.
I'm sorry, but this is not on my part. Is it on your part?
Can you hear? Oh, we can hear you. We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah. So you can continue your presentation if you
Okay, it's much better if I continue and then I stop, okay?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
All right. The crimes against humanity under the international humanitarian law, to name few: abductions, arbitrary arrests, detentions without trial, political executions, assassinations, and torture, where peace building and reconciliation, as I said earlier, become impossible. The examples of human dignity violations: torture, rape, social exclusion, labor exploitation, social injustice, poverty. The various other acts, according to ICC 26 June 2024 ruling: murder, extermination, enslavement, torture, forcible transfer of populations, imprisonment, rape, persecution, enforced disappearance, and apartheid. Now, my question was to myself, are there human rights violations in Israel? According to the US State Department, International, Palestinian and Israeli human rights, and other human rights organizations, there are credible reports of human rights violations committed against the Palestinians, the indigenous population. Humanitarian crimes are committed. The Israeli authorities are responsible for the war crimes of starvation as a method of warfare, murder, or willful killing, internationally directing attacks against civilians and civilian objects, forcible transfer, and several violence acts. Again, this comes from the ICC, the International Criminal Court of 12 June 2024. The Gaza genocide is a good example. Gaza is in total rubble and destruction. Its reconstruction and restoration to pre-October 7, 2023 will require tens of years. So far, 39,653 of its indigenous people have been killed, and more than 91,000 have been wounded and maimed, mostly children and women. This is according to the United Nations Humanitarian Assistance Director, Andrea De Domenico, 2 days ago. Even his work permit will expire by the end of the year and will not be renewed. Whose land is Palestine? This important land is in the crossroads of the world's major nations' civilization, was raided by the Romans, Egyptians, Babylonians, and Ottomans, and today, as we all know, occupied by Israel. And the people's struggle goes on in search of the right of freedom and their desire to live in peace and tranquility. But before ending this presentation, allow me to take you to Gaza, to Beit Hanun, where a librarian with EB's projects had written a call from the heart to the people anywhere in the world. Beit Hanun was totally destroyed at the beginning of the genocide, and the librarian's home was totally destroyed. She had a baby who was a baby girl, actually, who was only 2 months old, and the mother with her own family had to seek shelter several times. So the family survived, and this woman has written her wish to the world in Arabic, and it was translated. Tell the world about the heat in the tent. Tell the world about the children's sweat as they bathe in salty water. Tell the world about the hot pillows and pillowcases and even the floor of the tents. Tell them about our flowing salty tears against our will. Tell them about the family's painful dispersion here, there, and everywhere, north, south, east, and west. Tell the world about the loss of our homes, projects, businesses, and future. Tell the world about the long and exhausting queues of people waiting to reach the polluted water. Tell them about cooking on our furniture wood, which they destroyed. Tell them about the robbers and gangs deployed and their attacks on the people. Tell the world about the aid which the planes drop in the sea, compelling the needy to drown or fight among themselves, hoping to get some. Tell them about the drones that deafen our ears. Tell them about the torn clothes and shoes that can't be found to keep the children away from the heat of the sand of the sea. Tell the world about our newborn babies who are registered as children of the war 2023-2024. Tell the world about the difficulties of getting any assistance from any organization, because the happenings and catastrophes are much greater than any brain can comprehend. Tell them about the isolation from the rest of the world for lack of internet and um, communication. Tell them about the wasps, snakes, flies, and mosquitoes that enjoy our bodies. Tell them about the skin and bowel sicknesses. Tell them about the terror and injustice done to most people. Tell the world about the people who starved and died of hunger. Tell them there is no just king who advocates and practices justice. There is no justice. Talk about our children whose facial features changed and aged despite their childhood. Tell them that we can't accompany our children to the markets for fear they see the fruit which we can't buy them. Tell them about men's weakness and depression in the presence of their wives and children as a result of inability to buy them the fruit. Tell the world that our doctors, engineers, and and nurses and teachers will sell bread and food cans. And when they see their students, they lower their heads as they feel embarrassed. Tell them that we used to live in peace and security, and we are now with no safety and no peace. Tell them that my son is called Salam, or peace, but he lives nothing except war. Tell them that we are rewriting our priorities and our dreams have to stay alive. Tell the world we suffer from mental and physical sicknesses. Tell them that they cry bitterly but hide our tears so that our children do not see. Tell them about queuing in long lines to use the toilets as we have no privacy. Tell them that we live in tents made of cloth with planes and drones spying on us, monitoring our movements. Tell them that they drop leaflets on us to evacuate our living areas, but simultaneously start shooting. Tell the world that we fled more than once, and each time we lose our belongings, as if it's either your life or belonging. We are certain that you can't say all. Tell them that our martyrs are much more important than numbers and much more bigger than numbers. Do not forget to tell the world that we are the rightful owners. Tell them and do not be depressed. Tell them and stay resilient and steadfast. Talk to them and tell the world you are with us. And with what is right, do not forget to pray for us. This is the librarian's word to all the listeners. This is all that I have for you now. If you have any question, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Nora, for this really powerful presentation and for sharing those words. Someone asked in the group chat if we could get the transcript of this letter to the world. If you can provide that to me later.
Of course, I will. Okay, you
Okay.
want it in Arabic and in English. I can give it to you because I translated it in English.
Oh, wow, thank you. Yeah, we can have both, but thank you so much for translating and sharing that with us. It was really
Pleasure.
powerful. I think a lot of the people in this room are holding this in grief and reflection right now. So if you have any questions for Nora, please put it in the meantime. I suppose one thing you could share is the current situation and updates in Jerusalem. I know you're based in East Jerusalem, so if there's any updates you want to share about that, I think our audience would also like to hear about it.
Okay, but allow me to say just one thing. As we all know, as the native citizens of this place, we all say that a nation who knows how to smile and cry, in spite of the pain, deserves to live and thrive. This is my motto also. Oftentimes, one gets depressed, but there are always parts for hope and smiling. So anyway, whatever question you have, I'm ready. You want me to tell you about the situation in Jerusalem? Now, the struggle in Jerusalem with the churches, it's about taxation and also the taxes for the municipality. The municipality is imposing a taxation on the church's property, and the churches are very adamant about not paying, and this means the struggle will be renewed once again every few years. It comes back. The cabinet in Israel with the two ministers, financial minister and that of national security, do not want any of the natives or indigenous people to stay in Jerusalem. They want them all out, including the churches, because of the church property that really it helps. There are many churches that offer housing projects, education possibilities, and many other services to the local population. And the government does not want this to continue. So they're trying to put all these strangles and all these difficulties on them in order to make their lives harder. This is the most outstanding thing in these days that is happening at the level of the churches. The residents are scared at the moment for what it will be coming, and their housing, their living conditions are not as great as they were before during the Jordanian times, and they're worsening every other year. Job opportunities in Jerusalem are becoming less and less. Most of the youth who are educated do not have the opportunity to work. Many are working as laborers on housing schemes and building, although building at the moment is also stalled. There are institutions that continue to provide some job opportunities for the youth of the city. But tourism is zero. Tourism is very limited. Is limited to some people who come through the churches, but they are very few. So tourism and guiding are at a 0 point. Labor, as I said, some chances of labor within Israel, but not on the Palestinian side. Education is becoming also another serious problem because the Israeli educational system is going to be imposed and enforced on the Palestinian education and the schools. And the schools are also finding difficulties to accommodate all the students because some schools, out of lack of finances, are about to close. The number of students is on the increase, and many families find it a solution to take and put their kids in municipal schools, but the majority reject it. On all levels, life in Jerusalem is backwards, and projects are stalled at the moment. The fear of another war hitting the area is a major fear among the population because they cannot sustain that. It's been too much from war and to war and intifada to another intifada and so on. So this is the general atmosphere. I say Jerusalem is now, in the old city particularly, is a dead city. You go through the Christian Quarter and other areas in the old city, you find all the places closed. No tourists, very few people walking by. The shop owners, at times, they sit and play cards with their neighbors, or they close their shops and go back home. So it's more or less like a dead city. And only on Fridays, people come to the mosque to pray, and some green groceries open because these people come to also help and encourage the Palestinian shopkeepers in the old city. So, on total and in general, I can say Jerusalem is not the Jerusalem that was a year ago. It has changed dramatically to the worst, certainly. But we have no other choice than stay and be resilient. This much I can say.
Thank you, Nora. Someone asked, I guess, a related question in the chat. Gail, she asked if you have recommendations as to how best to get assistance and support people in these dire times, especially with unemployment so high and the humanitarian needs everywhere.
The humanitarian assistance programs continue through the international organizations who cannot even reach Gaza. They do it through their own contacts there, and some of them have also staff in Gaza. In the West Bank, there is tremendous needs because most areas are cordoned off. They cannot move from one place to the other. And every day we hear about happenings like shootings and stuff, and youngsters are being killed and or imprisoned, and their houses are being demolished. And the Israeli army also demolishes the paved roads, leaving them in rubble. So there are lots of constraints and lots of difficulties that these families face. Again, I go to the humanitarian assistance. It's not like before because Gaza is the priority for most of these international organizations because it's a warfare of starvation. And in the West Bank, I can't say there is starvation, there is need, but no starvation. And besides, these people hope that they can plant their lands that are fertile and they can, plant veggies and things like that. But the fear is of the settlers who raid these villages. Like I know in Nablus, the most fertile areas are often raided, almost every day raided, and they have pigs and they have wild dogs on the loose. So these people are scared to death to plant their lands and make use of, the fertility of the land. But organizations continue to provide some assistance no matter what, but it is a drop in the ocean because no work, no jobs, no possibility to plant their lands, no possibility to move and work in any other form. So anyway, life is very hard these days for everyone, especially also in the West Bank. I don't want to talk about Gaza because most of the news covers all the Gaza situations. And to be honest, it is something that has become too much to bear. The librarian put it in words. Honest to God, I often cannot watch the news because I feel terribly with pain and headache. But we can't except watch what is going on in our world.
Nora
Yes,
Kort,
yes, yes.
someone, she's similar to Nora Kumi. They're both.
I can't hear well.
I think that was Diane. I don't know if she wanted to ask. She actually did have a question in the chat though. If Bint al-Balad is still in the old city.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but
She has a question about Bint al-Balad.
yes, just whether it's still in the old city. I know you said you mentioned you worked on initiating a few projects with them. So
Right. Bint al-Balad is still there, but I have no connection now because I resigned.
And you mentioned also, I know in your presentation you had mentioned, other minorities that have been neglected. And I know in your work, you've worked a lot on women projects, women issues.
Yes.
So if you want to also speak on this and you know, issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
The women projects in the West Bank, you know, they are keeping families together. They're supporting families out of their little that they get, selling the food, because the projects I started there are related to food processing, vegetable growing. They have tomatoes and cucumber in plant nurseries and things like that. And also straw, making the trays of straw, and all these bring them some income, no matter how little it is, but it helps the family budget. So all these projects are ongoing, and those projects that are related to health and education and the service of the elderly are still ongoing. Certainly not as powerful as they were before because of funding problems. Funding has become very limited these days. So we have to enforce our energies and strengthen them in order to get the funding for them. There are lots of projects that I can talk about. Hearing impaired, for example, the hearing problems. Do you know that one thing I read the other day about some of the prisoners being tortured? They put like some electronic things or electric things in their ears, and their hearing is getting impaired. And when they get out of the jails, they cannot hear anymore. They lose their hearing. So there are hearing loss problems, and the same includes also other areas of the body where they are being tortured, especially the prisoners, the young ones, not the elderly ones only, but also the young ones. So all I can say is that all these kinds of systems are being used against the people, but the resilience remains because the natives, the Palestinians, have no other place to go except stay on their land and survive.
And you're currently a president, you mentioned you're president of ATA services.
Yes,
Could you tell us a
ATA
little bit about the current? Yeah,
the
and then
ATA,
also how we can support your.
thank you. I want to, with regards ATA means Aid to the Aged. It was the first organization that targeted youth to be involved with the elderly. They were trained to do home care services, health services, as well as entertainment, and the training of the school children in schools to take care of the elderly, because eventually the aim is to have it sustainable programs for the elderly in the Palestinian community. And we had researches done about the elderly Palestinians with the University of Oxford, and the people in charge came, and we did a lot of work on that level. Hopefully we will continue with our studies and researches among the Palestinian elderly. But the training of the youth and the services, comprehensive services for the elderly, whether in the health sector or in the social sector or their mental health capacity. You know, the capacity building of the nation takes a long time. On this, if there's a possibility to help, that will be great, because ATA will thrust its work on the training and the multi-services for the elderly in the Palestinian areas, lesser in Jerusalem, because Jerusalem, the municipality provides some services for the elderly. So we don't want to duplicate and waste the money. Our direction is the West Bank and Gaza. Hopefully we can go on to Gaza.
And people have been asking the name of this program. If you have a website, I can send this to our audience so they can
I
look in.
will give you all the information. I'm just in the reorganization of the ATOM. Okay, so new board, new things, and new ideas coming up. But I will share with you on another occasion. Okay.
Perfect. So yeah, people will love to see that. So we'll make sure to share that once you finish the reorganization.
Okay.
And then if does anyone else have questions for Nora before our time concludes with her? If not, is there any last things you would like to impart on the audience, Nora?
What I like to say is they continue their relationship with us, to know the truth itself, because sometimes the media doesn't cover the correct news, distorted news. Just listen and read whatever is going on here. There are certainly not enough news about the happenings here, but there are venues and there are sources that they can tap on to get the right picture about things. To be of support to the community here and also the Christian community, because immigration, I am sorry to say, I try to evade answering that about Jerusalem. The young generation seeks opportunities outside the country, no matter how much they believe in staying and being at home and, continuing the presence of the community. But there are lots of needs for these young men and young women, especially the jobs. So they are constantly in search of jobs. Luckily, these days, with the local universities and the possibility of engaging them in lots of activities is good. But still, it has to be holistic. It has to be on a national level. And I believe their support, our friends' support, in conveying the message, the just message about what is going on here and what are the aspirations of the Palestinians. What we aspire for is to live freely, to live with our communities in peace, and no wars, and no killings, and no imprisonment. Enough is enough.
Thank you, Nora, for the powerful presentation. I don't know if you see the chat, but people are giving their thanks in the chat for you speaking today. So on behalf of everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll transition now to the action portion of our session. So you can stay if you would like, but if you're busy.
I would like to know a little bit about it, yes.
But you can stay. I think Felipa, if you would like to present some of the actions for this week, that'd be great.
Okay.
Hi everyone. So the actions we have organized this week are as usual, finding protests in our local areas. So in the UK, that would be through the Palestine campaign. Hold on, let me just copy and paste the oh no, you can do that, Tan. Okay. So yeah, through the usual avenues, Palestine campaign, US CPR, and PAL actions as well for world actions. Another campaign that we can join. I'm not sure if it's no, it's not. Okay, I thought it was timed out, but Red Card Israel at FIFA. So this would be to email the FIFA council members to ask them if they can suspend the Israeli team on the 31st of August this year. And this would just kind of put forward an international pressure on and prevent like the normalization of Israel, especially now in the light of their genocidal actions. And in the UK, we have the Boycott Barclays Bank campaign with in collaboration with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. So this this action, we've kind of had it rolling on just so you guys can share with your neighbors, friends, people that you know that Barclays is and continues to invest in Israeli companies, and particularly in the occupied West Bank, occupied Palestinian territory. They continue to invest in that, and they also continue to invest in weapons manufacturing, which we should all, feel a type of way about, given the fact that they are selling weapons to Israel to commit crimes against humanity. So yes, definitely get involved in the boycotting of Barclays Bank and close your account on the 12th of September in a mass account closure day. So those are the actions we have for this week. I'm gonna hand back to Tan now. Bye everyone.
Awesome. Yes, I'll leave the last few minutes for everyone to complete these actions if you haven't done so already. I know we've been doing these actions for the last few weeks, so if there are also any other campaigns that you would like to inform the group about, this would be a good opportunity to do so. And I know, Randy, you've been sharing for the last few weeks with the campaign on Layan Nasser, I believe. But if you would like to, if there's any updates, that would be great as well.
There really is no update as far as I'm aware at this point. She remains in an Israeli prison under what we understand to be horrible conditions, though those are only from people who have been released, and either from their physical appearance or from their words have told us that things are very bad. As far as we know, she's subject to this 4-month additional administrative detention. And of course, we continue to call for her release. But both the Archbishop of Canterbury in England, the Bishop of Gloucester in England have both been very vocal about her needing to be released. Here on this side of the pond, the TEC, the Episcopal Church, has been less vocal, but still has an action that's going on that is calling on our elected officials to intervene with the State Department and with the Israeli government to try and obtain her release. I'll try and put the link in there. One thing I just wanted to say I mentioned earlier in the chat that the Episcopal bishops, the House of Bishops at our most recent Episcopal General Convention, refused to pass and actually almost refused to even consider a resolution identifying Palestinians as one of the indigenous peoples of the eastern shore of the Mediterranean. And I just find that to be so wrongheaded. And we're hoping to be able to take that back, although the General Convention doesn't meet for another 3 years. Some of us are hoping to take that back to our Executive Council, which includes the presiding bishop, and say, look, we just look stupid by being unwilling to say that Palestinians are among the indigenous people. And if Ms. Kort would be willing to help us in that, I would be glad to send her my email contact information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Randy. And yeah, very disappointing to hear about the church decision, but a lot of work needs to be done for sure.
Yes.
I believe there's also been recent news of Sheikh Sabri of Al
Ikrimah Sabri, yeah.
being arrested. So I know there was a letter that came from IPMN, I believe, to protest his arrest. But if there's other campaigns publicly that is going on this, then we can share this also in the chat. And I'll look for any campaigns and send this to our newsletter in our group so that we can also do that next week.
I understood that Sheikh Kumi Sabri was released.
Oh, was he? Okay.
He was released.
Yes, he was released after interrogation at the Central Police Station.
Yes.
However, there are plans in place and may actually have already been implemented to ban him from East Jerusalem.
They
Uh,
banned him for a couple of days. That was what I heard. I'm a member of.
I understood it was a couple of months and that he wasn't allowed to enter the Al
Could
Aqsa
be.
for that period as
Oh,
well.
that's a norm for them. This is what they do usually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we do need to continue to follow that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I also saw some information earlier of a protest happening in DC. I think Rick may have said that. So if there's information about that, we can put that on the link too for anyone based in DC. But if there's other locations in your communities where there's an upcoming protest, we can put this in the chat and we'll make sure to report this so that other people also know.
And I was there.
Oh, really? Okay, awesome.
The Mennonites were very strongly there. There were at least 200 people who were protesting, and a lot of the protest was directed to Christians for support of Israel. A Christian nationalist organization that was hosted in a huge hotel. But the Christians for a Free Palestine consisted of a fair number of Jewish folks, even a couple of Buddhist and large denominations across the board. But the Mennonites were the most prominent. They had a march for 150 miles coming to Washington. And a number were arrested in blocking a bus that was going to the capital of the supporters of Israel. They were arrested in trying to block that bus.
Oh yeah, thanks for sharing the update, John. I think I remember seeing videos also of the action, so it seemed really powerful. So I can actually link because I know Mennonite Action, they often do protests, right? Like they're pretty regular in their actions. So I can see if they have an account, and I'll put this down here for people also to follow their work. All right, so we're at the end of our hour. So unless there's any last comments, we'll see you all next week. Next week we will I believe be presenting, let me check, with Susan Wilder from IPMN. So this is going to be, the topic is going to be the US role in Palestine. And then the week after that, we'll have the Institute of Christian Zionism to speak about Christian Zionism. And then we'll be ending the month with Mary Hasboon, who's a Chicago-based Palestinian artist, and she'll be talking about art and resistance. So we have a few exciting weeks ahead. Again, thank you, Nora, for your time and your presentation.
Pleasure. And keep me on your list. Invite
Yes,
me to some of these activities, to these discussions, because I like to be always close to all these subjects. I forgot to tell you that about 2 weeks ago, I had written a short article for my story on Facebook, and they suspended my Facebook and my Messenger accounts. It was stopped for 3 days. So there is strong monitoring and surveilling, these kinds of articles. So better be careful, you too, I mean, with what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Deborah, I think you have your hand up. Do you want to say something?
We've had riots in the UK from the left, from the far right. They've been threatening people in the hotels, migrants, and it's been awful. So we're kind of living through a crisis.
Mhm.
You know, some countries aren't coming to the UK because they're worried. I mean, it hasn't affected me, but I know that it was all stemmed from a murder of 3 little girls by an autistic boy who was a Christian from Rwanda. Well, he was born in Cardiff, and it was very anti-Muslim. It was very anti-racist. It was horrible. So we've had all this all week.
Yeah, thank you,
So,
Deborah, for sharing.
mm,
Okay, from me, bye-bye.